Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, and in this RDNA.com video, we're going to be discussing, as well as analysing, well, let's face it, AMD. Today was a very interesting day with AMD's press conference, and honestly, I had initially gone into this thinking that I would just go over everything they'd announced again, but I did a live reaction for that with Amy, and honestly, I think most of you have seen the specs. We'll go over a few of the highlights, just in case you did miss it, but I'd rather instead focus on several other things, including feature sets. So the 6800 XT to me is the WinRAR. It's $649 US, which perfectly matches my price prediction, well, actually more of a leak, that there would be $50 US cheaper than Nvidia. The GPU features 72 compute units, 2015 and 2250 MHz for the game clock and boost clock respectively, 128 megabytes of Infinity cache, yup, that is real, and 16 gigabytes of memory. It's worth noting that the Infinity cache is apparently improving performance by over 3 times compared to what it would be if it was just 16 gigabytes of 16 Gbps memory on a 256-bit bus by itself. And honestly, it's very smart that AMD have done this. Scalability for this architecture is amazing, because obviously they can reduce the amount of cache or increase the amount of cache. They can use different memory configurations, DDR4, GDDR6, whatever, and it will scale very well. Furthermore, the architecture apparently requires less power, again, definitely a win, and it's also less expensive to produce, again, a win. As for performance, well, honestly, exactly what I had predicted and leaked on the channel. Slightly better at 1440p results compared to the 4K results, meaning it seems to do better at 1440p, but certainly not poorly. You can see that at 4K, it's basically a tie with the RTX 3080. Some people will claim AMD or Nvidia are winning, and it really does seem to depend upon the game and architecture. We don't have enough games here to really call it in a wider sense, and at 1440p, definitely AMD seem to be slightly ahead. The 6800 meanwhile is $579 US and features far fewer CU, 60 CU. I personally feel that the 6800 XT is the sweet spot, with $1,000 US being asked for the 6900 XT. If you've got the cash and you're an AMD fan, by all means, feel free to pick up the 6900 XT. It seems to be about on par with the RTX 3090, so it's certainly not a bad GPU. I suspect AMD will face off very soon against the RTX 3080 Ti. After all, CoPD7 Kimi has already leaked its existence. But in terms of the features, well, yeah, AMD have done good. They have drastically changed the architecture for RDNA 2, and it features things such as variable rate shading and hardware-based ray tracing. And that's where I want to stick on just for a moment. With hardware-based ray tracing, there is no information at all of how it performs, and what I find very interesting about that is all of my info seems to indicate, and given that information was right on everything else, Infinity cache, performance, price, even a mid-November release window for the cards, I'm going to say that my source was probably accurate. They told me that it's slightly better, or even slightly worse, it seems to depend upon the game, than the RTX 20 series. In other words, it seems to be about on par with Turing, which is probably a reason AMD are a little more shy showing that off. Whether that's going to influence your decision or not, who knows? I personally am very happy with the performance of the cards, but I do realise that some people prefer Nvidia, some people prefer AMD, but I do think that right now we have a really nice set of options. But as for DLSS-like technology, this is where things get quite interesting. You might recall that I did leak that I believe that there is a DLSS-like technology, and I was told it's going to be in a driver update, and this seems to be confirmed by The Verge, because in a discussion with Tom Warren, it was said that there is a DLSS-like technology, and I'm going to read this verbatim. While AMD is promising to go head-to-head with Nvidia in 4K gaming and more, the one big piece missing in this battle is lack of equivalent Nvidia DLSS. Nvidia's AI-powered supersampling technology has been transformative for games, bringing great image quality and higher frame rates simply by toggling an in-game setting. AMD tells me that the new supersampling feature is in testing, which is designed to increase performance during ray tracing. The company is promising its supersampling technology will be open and cross-platform, which means it should work on the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. AMD is working with a number of game partners on the technology. Unfortunately, it won't be ready for launch for the RX 6000 series. Again, I think that the method for this is identical to what Microsoft have outlined for the Xbox. Lower precision operations running on the GPU, probably either 4 or 8-bit. This matches very much what my sources have told me, and again, I want to stress, these sources were right on everything for RDNA 2. The prices, the release schedule, the fact that we would see the 6800, the 6800 XT, the 6900 XT, the Infinity Cache, even other features which I was asked to not speak about, my source has been 100% correct on, and they told me, and other sources have also backed up everything these sources have said, and have told me that the PS5 can do DLSS-like technology, like upsampling. So I'm going to say that what The Verge are reporting on here is bang on. My personal opinion, therefore, of RDNA 2 is it's everything I'd hoped for. My big question is whether AMD can ever match the demand for these GPUs, given the shortages of the RTX 30 series. Depending on who you want to listen to, Nvidia either had unprecedented demand or failed to make enough GPUs. I don't know the honest truth to that. I'm getting multiple reports from different people, each claim that they are right. Honestly, I think the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. All I can say though is AMD have a really good chance to grab a large amount of TAM, total available market, and that obviously is great for AMD. I also want to discuss, well, just a crazy thing that's been floating around, and it concerns the Xbox Series X and how it implements the full RDNA 2 architecture, which I don't know how we're really talking about this anymore. Basically what Microsoft is saying in this article is that they have things like machine learning. They have features like variable rate shading and so on, which is basically the desktop implementation of this. And again, none of this is surprising. For a long time on the channel, we've stated that the Xbox Series X and RDNA 2 is, for the desktop, is very similar. There are some differences. Mostly Microsoft are not stupid. They remove anything that is specific to desktop because you don't need it. Furthermore, Microsoft have also stated things like custom ray tracing. Now, unfortunately, they didn't detail what custom ray tracing is. I'm going to assume because AMD still had them not disclosing things. I don't think that was Microsoft's doing. I think that was AMD. If you have any logic, you can follow that if Microsoft are customizing something, it's to improve it or tweak it specifically for the console. Therefore, I am going to guess, and I could be wrong, I'm going to guess that per CU, the Xbox does ray tracing better than RDNA 2 for the desktop PC. I'm going to assume that. I don't know it, but I'm going to assume it based upon what Microsoft have stated, and having no real reason to customize something if it's as good as what solution is you want. So people are, of course, taking a narrative about this, as they always do. And the reason behind this is because you can twist the AMD conference and the subsequent Xbox thing however you want. I'm seeing both sides of it, and I'm getting inundated from DMs on multiple sides. For example, if you look at the RDNA 2 conference, there's a specific part where, well, they mention things such as mesh shaders on RDNA 2. And also in other areas, they mention about how the clock frequency and per CU is designed to run at high clock frequencies. So you can make a very good argument that the PlayStation 5 implementation of RDNA 2 is closer to the desktop. Sorry, is closer to how AMD engineered the GPU, running at higher clock frequencies. But you can also make the argument, if you so desire, that the desktop RDNA 2 is much closer to the Xbox, therefore it's full RDNA 2. And I would say that both of these are really completely and utterly missing the point. I know I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway because you guys watch me because, well, let's face it, I give my opinion, and I may be wrong at times, and that's fine, but I give my opinion and will say what I believe to be true. Mark Cerny, during the Sony event, Road to PS5, specifically states that they took the desktop implementation of RDNA 2 and they removed features that they did not want for the console. Microsoft, meanwhile, have said that they've customized RDNA 2 for their console. The real truth here is that Microsoft and Sony have customized the architecture, with Microsoft's being close to the desktop implementation and Sony removing features purposefully for the PlayStation. Now, does it really matter? Not really. It really comes down to the fact that the PS5, for example, has the Sony created geometry engine, which is, of course, well designed for the PlayStation 5. Microsoft had a quite different goal, actually, in that their goal from the beginning was to create a very easy to port environment between console and PC. And I think that it was a very smart decision from Microsoft. And honestly, I really love what they've done with the Xbox Series X. I think that for what you're getting for $499 US, it's damn impressive. And I suspect even when AMD fully release all of their lineup, so that's Zen 3, as well as, of course, RDNA 2, it's going to be very difficult to build a system which is able to compete with the Xbox Series X for the same price. And that, honestly, is a testament to just how awesome the engineering is for the Xbox Series X. I love it. I think it's a really great console. Then again, Sony did have quite different goals for the PlayStation 5. My personal opinion at this point is that gaming has never been so great as it is now. But to argue things like the Xbox has one feature and the PlayStation doesn't have another, I think honestly people are being quite willful in how this has been. Like just recently I had to defend the fact that the Xbox Series X was being accused of not having RDNA 2, and I literally had to do like a role reversal and say that of course it's RDNA 2. Others said that the Xbox didn't have dedicated audio components, and again, I had to point out that the Hot Chips conference, Microsoft has specifically stated that it does. As for things like machine learning, it does seem that AMD are kind of confirming this, because obviously upsampling is basically using lower precision. Although machine learning is also kind of a loose term anyway, because RDNA 2, and this is even for the desktop, it's not the same machine learning as, let's say, Nvidia with the tensor cores on their GPU, or for that matter CDNA, for which is basically MI100, which is a machine learning accelerator specifically crafted by AMD for data center and machine learning usage. I think, though, that this generation is going to be super interesting, and I'm super hyped. But switching back to the RX 6000 series, what do you think right now? Like, assuming availability was about the same for both, in other words, you could plonk down your cash on either AMD or Nvidia, which one would you go with? For me, I don't honestly know. I really want to know what the ray tracing performance is for AMD, and also how good their DLSS-like technology is. I'm hearing that it's not quite as good in terms of quality, but the performance drop is not as big as DLSS, so it's faster. But again, until I actually play around with it, I'll wait and see. I still think that the 6800 XT is the sweet spot, and I think that it's going to be a very interesting generation for this set of cards. I'm very interested to see how Nvidia will counter this. I suspect Jansen was watching the event with great interest, let's just be honest. But something tells me that AMD didn't really surprise Nvidia. I think Nvidia have been waiting for some time for AMD to drop this. With any luck, we'll also see Intel with their Xe architecture next year as well. Hopefully they can compete in gaming, although they've been awfully quiet on that recently, which is either a really good thing or a really bad thing. With all of that said, thank you very much for watching the video. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.